Oh, it's the fire. Is this the court building?
I don't know where it's at, but they all inside the building. It's probably a kitchen, probably caught on fire or something. I don't know. That means then the other fire truck is over there.
I'm trying to bring you.
I gotta start walking because I gotta.
Yeah, I'm coming.
I gotta get home.
Something
I'm
else.
going to chamber. All right, see you later. All right, y'all, we are going. I'm leaving the courthouse because.
What?
I wonder why they got all that tape all over the place.
Why she leaving the courthouse? The Diddy.
Everyone is okay too.
Why she leaving Diddy?
Where is this in New York?
So I can get to Weinstein.
Don't have enough water in that thing? Yeah, I'm trying to up in there in the courthouse.
Lord, if it ain't one thing, it is another going on in New York right now. Harvey Weinstein, who is on retrial for triple X crimes of adults and minors, and they're in deliberation. It's requested for a mistrial on a retrial. I was going to bring y'all that. And then I see this, and this is out here by the Diddy.
You don't have enough water in that thing?
I'm trying to see why she leaving, because they were supposed to be there until 5.
The fireman just went upstairs. There's a fire in the courthouse, y'all. A whole bunch of firemen went in there.
Lord,
I wonder what's burning up in there.
Has Diddy tried to start a fire? Please come in, hitting the like button, because you know I ain't gonna be on here long.
All right, y'all. They all went up the stairs. They went in there. It says the fire inside the building.
The courthouse. I don't know if this is for the Weinstein or the Diddy.
There's a fire inside that building. I don't know where it's at. Justice Department. Fireman.
Who done started a diversion of the fire?
They put a tape all the way around. A yellow tape, caution tape. You see the tape they put all the way around? Look at the tape.
I don't know where the fire is.
They all went up there.
I can smell the smoke.
You smell it, right?
Yeah.
Fire.
I don't know where it's at, but they all inside the building. It's probably a kitchen, probably caught on fire or something. I don't know. That means then the other fire truck is over there.
I gotta start walking because I gotta.
Yeah, I'm coming.
I gotta get home.
I'm going to chamber. All right, see you later. All right, y'all, we are going. I'm leaving the courthouse because I wonder why they got all that tape all over the place. I hope everyone is okay too. Where is this in New York? By the courthouse.
Oh, for sure.
She's not gonna say why.
Oh.
Okay, let's move on then. She's not telling why.
But okay, y'all remember I said she was a strong witness for a prosecutor. Now, I started listen, I'm about to change my outlook again. And here's why I'm about to change my outlook.
Let me get to why I'm here. Let me get to why I'm here. Up here.
At Sweet Bee Organics, we believe in the power of nature's ingredients to nurture your
All
these
triple X
Unlike
crime.
Somebody be robbed in the corner.
Let's go.
Last week, we don't feel safe to work here.
Now, police say 4 out of the 5 vehicles have been recovered, and they also tell us that nobody has been charged yet. Antoine?
Meredith, we'll take it. Thank you. Also developing right now, drama on the second day of jury deliberations in Harvey Weinstein's sex crimes retrial. Now, the drama had nothing to do with the defendant, but rather a juror, both in the morning and then again a short time ago. Richard Giacobus joins us from Lower Manhattan. And Richard, what is going on here?
Just so much, Antoine. And again, this is not even during deliberations. Harvey Weinstein's attorney again asking for that mistrial after the youngest juror on the panel approached the bench and said to the judge that the situation in the jury room is unfair and unjust. But the judge says he simply cannot do a mistrial because there are no alternate jurors. And if he excuses this juror, the trial would have to restart. Harvey Weinstein seated in a wheelchair in court today while his attorney argues that the jury now stopped deliberations. This young juror, juror number 7, began the day by telling the judge there was misconduct in the elevator prior to entering the courtroom. Not that there was a discussion of any evidence in the case. Now we're still waiting to see if deliberations resume. The mistrial has been denied. The once powerful 73-year-old movie mogul accused of raping aspiring actress Jessica Mann back in 2013 and assaulting 2 other women in 2006 and 2002.
Did he say a man?
And again, this is not even during deliberations. Harvey Weinstein's attorney again asking for that mistrial after the youngest juror on the panel approached the bench and said to the judge that the situation in the jury room is unfair and unjust. But the judge says he simply cannot do a mistrial because there are no alternate jurors. And if he excuses this juror, the trial would have to restart. Harvey Weinstein seated in a wheelchair in court today while his attorney argues that the jury now stopped deliberations. This young juror, juror number 7, began the day by telling the judge there was misconduct in the elevator prior to entering the courtroom. Not that there was a discussion of any evidence in the case. Now we're still waiting to see if deliberations resume. The mistrial has been denied. The once powerful 73-year-old movie mogul accused of raping aspiring actress Jessica Mann back in 2013 and assaulting 2 other women in 2006 and 2002. Weinstein has pleaded not guilty and has denied ever having non-consensual sex or assaulting anyone. Weinstein is on trial for a second time after a state appeals court threw out his conviction last year. He's already serving a 16-year prison sentence after being found guilty back in December of 2022 of rape in California. Weinstein is facing 25 years in prison for those 2 counts of criminal sexual acts and up to 4 years of the 1 count of rape. Now we're still watching notes here to see if the jury will continue deliberating. It is a Friday. If they cannot go back to deliberation and they cannot reach a verdict by 4 or 4:30 this afternoon, then they'll be back here on Monday to try it all again. For now, we're live outside the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Richard Giacobus, Fox 5.
Are y'all hearing what they try?
Right,
they pulling stunts, y'all, even in the
Weinstein. To tell you about right here on Fox 5. Now, earlier this week, our Rosanna Scotto actually had a phone interview with Harvey Weinstein. He spoke to her from Bellevue Hospital, where he's being held throughout the trial. And as was the case in his first trial, Weinstein did not testify in his defense, but agreed to the interview after closing arguments wrapped up on Wednesday. He admitted that he's nervous as the jury deliberates, and here's what the former Hollywood power broker had to say when asked if he thinks the accusations against him and what he thinks about those. Take a listen.
So let me ask you something. There were a lot of women who testified against you.
Yeah.
What do you think about those women and their testimony?
I think Arthur said they had 4 million reasons to testify, as in dollars.
Do you have any regrets whatsoever?
I have regrets that I put my family through this, that I put my wife through this, that I acted immorally, and I put
you
so many friends through this, but, and hurt, people, that were close to me by actions that were stupid, but never illegal, never criminal, never anything, you know what I mean?
Also Also in Manhattan, more testimony today from an ex-girlfriend of Sean Diddy Combs, and he was actually on better behavior today than yesterday, apparently. Now, in case you forgot, on Thursday, the judge threatened to throw Combs out of his own trial for nodding and gesturing at jurors during witness testimony. The court told defense attorneys that this was completely unacceptable behavior. An ex-girlfriend was back on the stand today detailing encounters with male sex workers while Sean Diddy Combs allegedly recorded them. There's also these so-called hotel nights that these events allegedly took place across the country. The 55-year-old Combs is facing 5 counts of racketeering, conspiracy, and sex trafficking. Sean Diddy Combs has pleaded not guilty to the charges. If convicted on all counts, he is facing life in prison. The Mexican Navy ship that crashed
Okay, that's...
the bridge last month has been moved from Pier 36.
Hold on, let me stop that. Let's get
With
more.
Harvey Weinstein by phone. He's in Bellevue Hospital where he's being held throughout the trial.
Why he in the
He
hospital?
did not testify in his own defense, nor in his first trial in Manhattan, but he agreed to talk to us after closing arguments wrapped up on Wednesday. He admitted that he is very nervous as the jury deliberates, and when asked if he considered testifying at the trial, well, this is why he didn't do it. I wanted to ask you why you did not take the stand in your own defense.
I wanted to, and, I desperately wanted to, and Arthur, said to me that the jury was, very, feeling strongly that the jury, understood our case and would be sympathetic to our case, and that the DA would try to rip me apart if I took the stand. I'm not afraid of the DA, but this was the best advice, and this is the advice you often hear. Don't take the stand if you don't have to.
I also asked him what he thinks of the accusations against him, and, well, here's what he said. Let me ask you something. There were a lot of women who testified against you.
Yeah.
What do you think about those women and their testimony?
I think Arthur said they had 4 million reasons to testify, as in dollars.
Do you have any regrets whatsoever?
I have regrets that I put my family through this, that I put my wife through this, that I acted immorally, and I put so many friends through this, and hurt, people, that were close to me by actions that were stupid, but never illegal, never criminal.
How can he say
anything,
what?
You know what I mean?
How can he say that? Oh my God.
As you know, Harvey Weinstein is right now being held at Bellevue Hospital because he's not feeling well, and we talked about his ailments.
The fakeness.
What about your health? What's going on with that?
That's not good. I'm 73 years old. I have spinal stenosis. I have bone marrow cancer. I have a thing called burning mound disease. I have a list of ailments longer than an encyclopedia. Not that anybody knows what an encyclopedia is these days.
What keeps you going? What keeps you going with this very serious health diagnosis?
I have to fight. I have to live for my children. I have to do that. I can't give up the fight, so I have to fight. Every day for my health.
Hold on. Oh my goodness. I can't believe one. Oh, I can't get out of this.
This is the
That.
Fox 5 News Block.
A wild situation in Queens. Police opened fire on a group accused of breaking into an auto dealership.
Get out of this.
And verdict.
Yes, okay. Hold on, yeah. Hold on. What is this one?
Earlier this week, I talked exclusively with Harvey Weinstein by phone. He's in Bellevue Hospital where he's being held throughout the trial. He did not testify in his own defense, nor in his first trial in Manhattan, but he agreed to talk to us after closing arguments wrapped up on Wednesday. He admitted that he is very nervous as the jury deliberates, and when asked if he considered testifying at the trial, well, this is why he didn't do it. I wanted to ask you why you did not take the stand in your own defense.
I wanted to, and, I desperately wanted to, and Arthur, said to me that the jury was, very, feeling strongly that the jury, understood our case and would be sympathetic to our case, and that the
Understood
would
it.
try to rip me apart if I took the stand. I'm not afraid of the DA, but this was the best advice, and this is the advice you all
Right,
hear.
Renee.
Don't take the stand if you
He
don't have
regret
to.
being caught.
I also asked him what he thinks of the accusations against him. And
Hold on, I'm getting to the other
here's
one,
what he
y'all.
said. Let me ask you something. There were a lot of women who testified against you.
Yeah.
What do you think about those women and their testimony?
I think Arthur said they had 4 million reasons to testify, as in dollars.
Have you heard about Ryoko?
Do you have any regrets
This is the cutting-edge
whatsoever?
portable Wi-Fi hotspot that people wish they found out about.
Would not prove their case beyond.
That I put my wife through this, and I acted immorally, and I put so many friends through this, but, and hurt, people, that were close to me by actions that were stupid, but never illegal, never criminal, never anything, As you
It is just
know,
such denial,
Harvey Weinstein is right now being held at Bellevue Hospital because he's not feeling well, and we talked about his ailments. What about your health? What's going on with that?
He got the nasty man's disease. Hold on, let's go.
Unreasonable doubt to find Mr. Weinstein not guilty of all charges. We expect vigorous cross-examination of all of their witnesses, with obviously especially the complainants. We don't call them victims when you're trying a case and there's someone who's been killed and there's a dead person there, or there's a video of someone's car being stolen. They're victims. Here, we don't believe they're victims at all, and I think the evidence is going to show that they're not victims, that in fact they were willing participants in a mutually beneficial relationship where Mr. Weinstein would help them with certain things in their lives, and in return they would spend quality time with him in a romantic way.
Oh,
so
wow.
we're all looking forward to this trial in front of this very attentive jury and this very thoughtful judge. Court of Appeals says you can't have all these other people in there that Mr. Weinstein was in charge with just to make him sound like he's not a nice guy. And when these women are cross-examined, it'll come out that everything that happened between them and Mr. Weinstein was absolutely consensual. And more than that, it's what they wanted. It's what they wanted as much as anything that Mr. Weinstein wanted, because they needed him to advance their careers, to advance their lives, to get them into the parties, to get them into the film festivals. Mr. Weinstein didn't need another actress. He didn't need another personal assistant. So we're confident that this jury, which is very, very attentive, they've been on the edge of their seat following everything so far, that they will come to the conclusion that Mr. Weinstein should be found not guilty of all charges. And I said, in this case, the casting couch is not a crime scene. For these three women, there was nothing that took place that was by force or that was non-consensual. Everybody knew what was going on. Everybody signed up for the plan. And, this is not a case about morality. This is not a case about cheating on your wife. There's a lot of real estate between someone being immoral and doing something illegal. And Mr. Weinstein is nowhere close to the illegality.
Okay, do you need me? Who wants to go through this? Okay. So that's why these women are special heroes as far as I'm concerned. And Mimi. I mean, She testified before the grand jury previously. She was vetted by the prosecutors. They vet every victim in every case. She testified again at the trial, the last trial. She's going to do it again. I mean, how many people do you know who just wouldn't have that kind of courage? I know quite a few of them. But I want them to be inspired by her. I want them to see her as a role
please hit the
model.
like button, support the
Because
platform.
The Me Too movement is alive and well. It's living in New York. It's living in California, where I
How
practice in
can
both
you
places.
morally
It's
represent a
living in
man?
D.C. It's living all
I
over
know,
the world.
right?
Here's my evidence for it. The women are still coming forward to testify. And we are doing countless confidential settlements because the men know we have the evidence. Better to be accountable in a confidential mediation, settle it if it can be settled, because it's much better to be accountable than to take your chances with a jury. Oh, hello.
Oh, thank you, Joanne. Prosecutors have described during their opening statements that he forcibly performed oral sex on Kaya when she was only 19 years old. He was 54 years old at the time. As I've said before, her story is not mine to tell, but she's ready to tell it, and she's going to tell it on the witness stand when it's her time to testify. Kaya has had her name out there before, and she has spoken to the press before, but when the DA asked her to testify, she made the decision to remain a Jane Doe because she didn't want the noise and the distractions coming from seeing her name in the press, and she wanted to be able to prepare for her testimony without that. Kaya is coming forward in this trial because it's the right thing to do. Kaya is seeking justice not only for herself, but for the other women that were harmed by Harvey Weinstein. Ultimately, this trial is about an incredibly powerful man who used and wielded that power to take advantage of women. I think that there's been a shift in the media attention surrounding this trial, not only because this is the third criminal trial of Harvey Weinstein for the sexual assaults, but also because of the environment and the other large-scale criminal sexual assault trials that are about to go on. And so I think that there is an explanation for the decrease in media attention. But like Gloria just said previously, the Me Too movement is alive and well. There's been incredible changes in legislation surrounding sexual assault. I think as a society, we are starting to have a better collective understanding about the trauma that sexual assault survivors have faced. And we are able to differentiate these rape myths and the victim blaming, which is a tactic that Weinstein's lawyers have used in this trial.
I'm getting ready to get on the cameras.
You've probably heard about Maximal's flagship product, the Casita.
I'm getting ready to get on the cameras.
On behalf of Mr. Weinstein's team, we have begun. Opening statements are behind us. We think we made a pretty compelling argument to the jury that when they hear the evidence from the witness stand, they will be inundated with inconsistencies and reasonable doubt to the point that they will have no choice but when they go into that deliberation room, come out and say the people have not proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt and to find Mr. Weinstein not guilty of all charges. We expect vigorous cross-examination of all of their witnesses, with obviously especially the complainants. You know, we don't call them victims when you're trying a case and there's someone who's been killed and there's a dead person there, or there's a video of someone's car being stolen. They're victims. Here, we don't believe they're victims at all, and I think the evidence is going to show that they're not victims, that in fact they were willing participants in a mutually beneficial relationship where Mr. Weinstein would help them with certain things in their lives, and in return they would spend quality time with him in a romantic way. So we're all looking forward to this trial in front of this very attentive jury and this very thoughtful judge. Court of Appeals says you can't have all these other people in there that Mr. Weinstein was in charge with. just to make him sound like he's not a nice guy. And when these women are cross-examined, it'll come out that everything that happened between them and Mr. Weinstein was absolutely consensual. And more than that, it's what they wanted. It's what they wanted as much as anything that Mr. Weinstein wanted, because they needed him to advance their careers, to advance their lives, to get them into the parties, to get them into the film festivals. Mr. Weinstein didn't need another actress. He didn't need another personal assistant. So we're confident that this jury, which is very, very attentive, they've been on the edge of their seat following everything so far, that they will come to the conclusion that Mr. Weinstein should be found not guilty of all charges. And I said, in this case, the casting couch is not a crime scene. For these three women, there was nothing that took place that was by force or that was non-consensual. Everybody knew what was going on. Everybody signed up for the plan. And, you know, this is not a case about morality. This is not a case about cheating on your wife. There's a lot of real estate between someone being immoral and doing something illegal. And Mr. Weinstein is nowhere close to the illegality.
Okay, do you need me? Who wants to go through this? Okay. So that's why these women are special heroes as far as I'm concerned. And
are they repeating the same stuff over?
I mean, she testified before the grand jury previously. She was vetted by the prosecutors. They vet every victim in every case. She testified again at the trial, the last trial. She's going to do it again. I mean, how many people do you know who just wouldn't have that kind of courage? I know quite a few of them. But I want them to be inspired by her. I want them to see her as a role model. Because the Me Too movement is alive and well. It's living in New York. It's living in California, where I practice in both places. It's living in D.C. It's living all over the world.
Name.
Here's my evidence for it. Women are still coming forward to testify. And we are doing countless confidential settlements because the men know we have the evidence. Better to be accountable in a confidential mediation, settle it if it can be settled, because it's much better to be accountable than to take your chances with a jury.
Prosecutors have described during their opening statements that he forcibly performed oral sex on Kaya when she was only 19 years old. He was 54 years old at the time. As I've said before, her story is not mine to tell, but she's ready to tell it, and she is going to tell it on the witness stand when it's her time to testify. Kaya has had her name out there before, and she has spoken to the press before, but when the DA asked her to testify, she made the decision to remain a Jane Doe because she didn't want the noise and the distractions coming from seeing her name in the press, and she wanted to be able to prepare for her testimony without that. Kaya is coming forward in this trial because it's the right thing to do. Kaya is seeking justice not only for herself, but for the other women that were harmed by Harvey Weinstein. Ultimately, this trial is about an incredibly powerful man who used and wielded that power to take advantage of women. I think that there's been a shift in the media attention surrounding this trial, not only because this is the third criminal trial of Harvey Weinstein for the sexual assaults, but also because of the environment and the other large-scale criminal sexual assault trials that are going on, about to go on. And so I think that there is an explanation for the decrease in media attention. But like Gloria just said previously, the Me Too movement is alive and well. There's been incredible changes in legislation surrounding sexual assault. I think as a society, we are starting to have a better collective understanding about the trauma that sexual assault survivors have faced. And we are able to differentiate these rape myths and the victim blaming, which is a tactic that Weinstein's lawyers have used in this trial.
I'm getting ready to get on the cameras.
On behalf behalf of Mr. Weinstein's team,
Okay, so they repeating it over. Hold on.
opening statements are behind us. We think we made it pretty
Better to be accountable.
They did this. Hold
It'll
on.
come out that everything that happened between them and Mr. Weinstein was absolutely consensual, and more than that, it's what they wanted.
Hold on.
It's what they wanted as much as anything that Mr. Weinstein wanted, because they needed
Oh,
him
please.
to advance their careers, to advance their lives, to get them
Oh,
into
my
the parties, to
goodness.
get them into the film festivals. Mr. Weinstein didn't need another
It's
actress,
always
didn't
the
need
women.
a personal assistant. So we're confident that this jury, which is very, very attentive.
It's always the women. Hold on. Why is it always the women, y'all? Is this the one I want?
Get canceled and have people sue you for saying it, but it was true.
Yes, it
All
is.
of the comment, it changes you as a person. It's, you know, you're one
That's the emails, the weird coded language in those. Last week, the book was Jay-Z added to the lawsuit with a Diddy law. Back in the day, I remember the WikiLeaks email drops and some of the stuff that never made any sense that people now think is fiction. The Podesta emails, the weird coded language in those emails. When you're reporting on that at the time, how I mean, I know that we were DMing about Frazzle Drip. I mean, I went down a dark rabbit hole. And I said I had a bad night of sleep and I had some bad dreams, and I said I'm going to give up on that. But you're doing the WikiLeaks drop at the time, and there was the whole Comet Pizza business. There was the whole pizza-related, what was it, a handkerchief with a pizza-related map on it.
Yeah.
Real emails. I mean, how far down that rabbit hole did you go? What sense did you ever make of that coded language in those emails?
too far. It changes you as a person. You know, your one night.
What are you
was,
talking
you know,
about?
probably about 6 months for me of just, I mean, I literally vomited
whatever
from some
your
of the
name
things
is.
that I researched. And so let's not
They
talk
were
about it
repeating
today.
the same
All of
thing
that was
over and
true.
over.
And, you know, you used to get
It was
canceled and
on
have
a
people
loop.
sue you for saying it, but it was true. All of the Comet Pizza stuff was true. It was true. Alefantis used to stalk me on Vote.
I remember Vote, VOAT.
Yeah.
Who is the person?
James
Your mama
Alefantis,
trash.
the guy who owned Comet Pizza.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, it was a crazy time.
Oh, okay.
It's not fun to
Well,
talk
whoever
about or
birthed
think
you
about, and that
is
stuff goes on
whatever you
everywhere.
say
And,
about
you know,
me
that's a great
is what
segue
whoever
into
birthed
Diddy.
you or
We talked
whatever
about
birthed
the
you.
news
It
last
belongs
week
to
that broke was
them.
Jay-Z added to the lawsuit with a Diddy lawsuit. The lawyer is Busby, who's a reputable attorney who's not dropping bombs without having backup, so to speak. And the P. Diddy business. I mean, I think everyone's mildly familiar with it, but let's break it down. And where are you at with that? How you've been following this, obviously not just from day one, but from before day one.
Yeah, so, you know, it's just the next iteration of Epstein, in my opinion, at this point, and there's a few reasons why. So Jay-Z was added to a civil suit, but you've got the criminal suit ongoing right now in the Southern District of New York, and there are shenanigans in that lawsuit. I don't know if you've read any of it or are familiar with any of it.
I'm familiar with some of it, but one of the things at the time, I mean, we touched on it a month ago maybe.
I'm sure
One of the
your
things I
mama
found
was probably
interesting
on
in
that
indictment, this is the Diddy indictment out of New
coaching
York,
couch.
is that it was talking about trafficking, etc., but there was nothing about underage minor stuff to it at the time, despite all of these very, very credible rumors, if not, you know, poorly kept secrets, and it still seems to be the case. So, I mean, the indictment is that he was involved in trafficking, but it didn't contain some of the salacious allegations that some of us were expecting. But tell us what's going on with that.
One of the first filings in that case was a filing, because that's how they do it there. It was the lawyer for Diddy complaining about the treatment that he got. And one of the things that struck me was that he was saying, he was trying to get bail for Diddy, right? And he's like, we've been working with the FBI on this. We've been working with the U.S. Attorney's offices on this. And for some reason, CNN and all these other media outlets show up with cameras on the morning that they raid his house. They knew where he was. He was keeping them apprised of his location. He was not traveling when they didn't want him to. If he did go somewhere, he told them. He was working with these guys, waiting for the day when he would have to probably turn himself in. But they engineered a very public and very televised arrest and raid of his home. right? They said that they held his kids at gunpoint, and I'm like, wow, doesn't that sound familiar? We've heard that before. And just the way the government handled it was weird. So that flagged me right off the bat. Because if you're alerting the media first, they did that with Roger Stone, they've done that with Donald Trump, it's not normal. But it got really crazy over the past 3 weeks or so. Because the government's saying that P. Diddy is trying to intimidate witnesses, trying to obstruct justice, and things like that. And Diddy's saying, no, I'm not. And
for the benefit of others, through not witness intimidation, but witness manipulation, which is what the allegation was not that he was threatening any of the witnesses, but he was contacting them, promising them things, whatever. And that was the extent of why they argued it was necessary to deny him bail. And back in the day, Tracy, when Barnes and I were talking about it, we were making the same arguments. For someone who's a flight risk, cooperating. For someone who's a flight risk to come back, other people were hypothesizing that this man thinks he's protected and that he's actually not going to get charged, which I think is sort of superficial at the point where, or I say shallow reasoning, we're at the point where they're at, where I think he knows the jig is up and something's going to drop by way of a hammer, which is why his incarceration among the nastiest of prisons was not necessary given the conditions that he was going to agree to for bail. What went down the last few weeks?
All of a sudden there was this pre-planned, quote, sweep of the prison, right? They were looking for contraband, they said. It was pre-planned, they were looking for contraband. Well, what the government ended up doing was having one of the people that were doing this raid at the jail actually interviewed quote everyone, and then interviewed Diddy, took pictures of his notes, went into his locker, Viva, took pictures of his notes, took pictures of privileged documents, took all of his stuff, not drugs, not any of that stuff, his illegal notes, and had them sent over to the prosecutorial team for the government, and then told nobody about it. It didn't go through a filter team. It didn't go through anything. It just went right into their hands. And so the next time that Diddy's lawyers filed for bond, because they keep on trying to get him out, when the government responded to that, in there were details there was no way they could have possibly known unless they had those things, which is what alerted his attorneys, Diddy's attorneys, to the fact that they actually stole, for lack of a better word, client attorney privilege materials and used them in a filing against him. So the lawyers throw their hands up in the air and they're like, what are you guys doing? How did this even happen? The judge looks at the evidence in a hearing that was granted to them and says, you know what, you're right, take that stuff out of there. And it needs to go to a filter team now. And the filter team needs to identify whether or not the stuff in here is privileged before you guys can see it, have it, use it, whatever. Still denies them bond. But this is what the government is doing. Now, if you could tell me, because you're an attorney and I'm not, okay? If you have a solid case for the things we talked about at the beginning of the segment here, are you doing something as significant as this under the cover of a contraband raid that takes a week in the prison, and then taking things that are labeled client attorney
pressure.
I mean, if you're the government, do you need that for your case?
Well, I've been having the pleasure, I guess, or displeasure in a way of talking to a number of people who are in prison, and they give you that warning.
Why is pressure? Why is 50 cents trolling Miss Joy?
If you're an attorney and you want the privilege line, you go through whatever system, and I trust that system like I trust, week-old gas station sushi. Yeah. My only question is what does he have now that they could possibly need from him on the inside when they basically seized everything on the outside and everything in everything?
That's a really good question. I feel like it's almost like they're trying to throw this thing. Truthfully, why would you do that? Now, is that true? I don't know. That's a speculative.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. To taint it the way they did the Alec Baldwin case, where I think it was Brady violations in Baldwin that they ended up tossing the case and he walked free from the get-go. There were people hypothesizing, and this was my theory at the beginning as well, that the investigation into Diddy was actually just a way to take control of the video evidence that they now have in their possession, much like the Epstein video evidence that they have in their possession. I had Ian Carroll on last week talking about this, and for someone in the chat who said nothing like the Epstein case, there are people who believe that this is the entertainment subsidiary of the Epstein political scientific subsidiary. Do we have any idea what they seized and who's in possession of the material, and who is covered or affected by the material or involved in the material that has been
That's
seized right
cold-blooded.
now by the authorities?
The filings that have been made by Diddy's attorneys are heavily redacted, obviously. They're kind of at a stalemate right now because they're fighting over all of this. They took all of his papers. That's basically what they took. He had no contraband. Now, he's not innocent, okay? I'm not saying that he's in there, you know, wrongfully imprisoned or anything like that, but he's innocent until proven guilty, which is why I was glad you said that in the beginning. It's true. And, you know, he is kind of finagling the text system in there. He's using the email system to send people text messages. Like, he's doing some things he probably shouldn't be doing. But what could they possibly have that they don't have already, other than information traveling between he and his attorneys? And, you know, where Jay-Z comes into this in this particular part is interesting, because there are a lot of influencers that we don't necessarily hang around with and tool around with, but they're, you know, pop culture people covering this story. And like 2 weeks ago it was, they came forward and they said, somebody is sending people to our house and they're offering us money to stop talking about this or to say the opposite of what we're saying. And they all went
They was
public with
denied a
that.
mistrial,
Somebody
though,
was
in
offering them
Weinstein.
money
Big
to
question.
basically say the opposite of what they were saying and not bring certain folks into the conversation. Nobody could figure out. They said they were private investigators, Leva. Who were they working for? Nobody had any idea. Nobody could figure out who. They were being filmed. They were
During
saying it
jury
brazenly
deliberation.
out in public, right? And then Busby starts getting kind of attacked by the Jay-Z side. So Jay-Z,
like threatened for legal malpractice, threatened for extortion.
yeah, and this Busby releases a partial transcript of a call where guys are saying, if you'll go say this, and this, we will pay you on behalf of our client, which like set off an alarm bell for me, because I'm like, that sounds really familiar. So here's what I think. I think, speculatively, that Diddy and Jay-Z are very much involved in this together. Jay-Z is doing everything and anything he can to keep this out of the public sphere. Now Busby comes in and says, we're adding you to the civil suit. Whether criminal charges will follow, we have no idea at this point. And it is really kind of a survival of the fittest to keep this stuff out of the hands of the public so that they're not exposed to the public and then suffer those consequences as well. But it all ties together, and the shenanigans in the Diddy case are bad enough that I don't know if you ever heard of Joshua Adam Schulte. Have you ever heard of him?
Let me Google it while you tell us who Joshua Adam Schulte.
Yes, SCHULTE.
Joshua Adam. Let's see who comes up here. Okay, the case study, Joshua Schulte, a former CIA officer, sentenced to 40 years in prison for espionage and CP crimes.
Yes.
Okay.
So just to give you an idea, he maintains to this day he didn't do it, but they accuse him of leaking the Vault 7 information to WikiLeaks. That was the CIA basically hacking tools that they used. He was in jail in the same prison that Diddy's in right now, right? He was representing himself and also had a public defender because his case was super complicated, so he needed to be able to represent himself to talk about some of the particulars. He actually won the first time. It was a mistrial the first go round when he represented himself. Just let that sink in for a second. But he had a laptop that they gave him to prepare his defense. He was
But they
only
tried him
allowed
again.
to look at that laptop in a skiff inside the prison, right? They maintained control of that laptop at all times. He went into the skiff. They have to strip search you before you go in there in the prison. Make sure you've got nothing on you. They give you the computer in the skiff, then they leave. They actually put another charge on him for having child porn on the laptop in the skiff that was given to him by the government. Same exact, like, it's almost, it reminds me so much of that case, and that's only one of the, like, nefarious things the government seems to have done.
It was Sheriff Atkinson, right, who talked about the FBI threatened or was planning to...
Oh, greed won't let
they
people just
threatened
move
or
on.
were planning to plant child pornography on her husband's laptop. And as if we think that they haven't done it. We also know that in the Jones case, what they said was that Jones had sent CP over to the defendants, when in reality, people were sending, when he turned over all of his computers, from what I understand, he had been getting emails with stuff in it that he hadn't even opened that were in the junk. And some hypothesized that it was strictly a setup to get him in trouble and to let the media run with that headline. So But okay, now let's sort of tie the loop to this. The FBI agent who gets sentenced for this, he was the one who allegedly is behind the Vault 7 leak, which Vault 7, was that the one that was revealing how the intelligence was going to take over cars and crash them for assassinations?
There was some of that in there, but it was really the hacking tools that the CIA uses. So it was all their information about hacking. He worked for the CIA. He was basically blowing the whistle about the lack of security at the CIA with he had an inspector general investigation ongoing at the time. Basically, their passwords were like password 123, and he was the security guy. And he's like, "You guys can't do this. This is crazy." But they pinged this leak. Now, I personally don't believe it was him after reading the 7,000 docket entries in the case. I don't believe it was him. But the way they treated him is the same way that they're kind of weaseling around with Diddy here and the kind of the shady stuff they're doing, except they wanted him, and I think they're throwing the Diddy case.
It's interesting. Yeah, well, yeah, it's an amazing idea. Some people were hypothesizing, let me get this chat, this is Maureen Brown, the timing of his incarceration prior to Trump's win is the most suspect part of the case. Not necessarily prior to Trump's win. The raid on Diddy and then the celebrities with, I mean, I know it becomes something of an internet meme and we're playing like 1 degree of Kevin Bacon where everybody is 1 degree off of Diddy to some extent.
Yeah.
But the timing of it and then the celebs that came out of the woodwork to endorse Kamala Harris, either for payment or for favor, you can connect those dots or you can choose not to, but the dots are definitely there. And then if they got what they wanted or needed, politically speaking, they've seized the evidence, much like they've seized the Epstein tapes. No one's going to see them until they need them to be used. And then Kamala Harris loses, and now they want to throw the case for Diddy and get him out, allow him to get out the same way Alec Baldwin got out for violation of civil rights and whatever.
It's just one angle of what they might be doing, seriously. But I cannot understand why they would need to do this unless there's something that he has that they want and they're looking for whatever reason, whether it's make it public or keep it for themselves, I don't know. But there are very few reasons why a qualified government team who does this for a living all day long, they're criminal, they're prosecuting criminals, would do something this abhorrent. Yeah.
And unnecessarily so. So for the time being, there are no underage accusations, allegations. It's RICO charges for sex trafficking. There hasn't been a superseding indictment as far as I know?
No.
Okay. So none of the underage stuff, despite the allegations. The civil suit with Jay-Z and P. Diddy, who was it again that filed that suit? I forget his name now.
The attorney?
No. It's a Jane Doe in the civil suit, and that's
and Jay-Z's trying to unmask her. He's trying to force her to go public. Yeah, he's literally victim blaming and attempting to get this woman doxxed. I don't think he knows which one it is. There probably are several of them that he's wondering which one it is, or he's trying to ruin the girl's life. It's a terrible thing that's going on right now, and they're threatening everyday people with cameras in their face. So, yeah.
Ooh-wee. Okay, so let's see what I got next.
This is the premium garment duffel 40.
What do I have next, Lord? This is crazy. This is crazy. This is crazy. I don't know. Oh. These people are crazy. I don't know what that guy was wanting me to play with this.
So we're confident that this jury, which is very, very
they just kept repeating the same stuff
on the edge
over.
of their seat, following everything so far.
He still has that conviction for rape in Los Angeles, which has to be served separately from the New York sentence. But his attorney in the California case believes the consequences of the New York decision could impact the California case, in part because prosecutors used the verdict in New York with the California jury. Joining us now is Jennifer Bonjean. She is Harvey Weinstein's California lawyer, plans to file an appeal on behalf of him in California. Thanks very much. for coming on the program. Appreciate it. So explain to us what your argument is as to why the New York decision would impact the California case.
Well, you have to understand that when that Los Angeles jury walked into that courtroom, not only did every potential juror understand that there were allegations generally in the media that he was alleged to have committed these heinous sex crimes, but what they also understood and knew was that he was a convicted felon. He came into that courtroom with the stamp of convicted felon on his back. And they believed
I can't defend Diddy action, and you can't defend these women's actions either. Just the
his peers, and that it was done
let me
so
finish
fairly,
the what
and
you
that turned
hold
out
on.
to
It
be
takes
the
a
case
fool.
at
What you
all. That
say?
trial was
Let
essentially
me get
rigged
back
in
to
the
what
sense
you
that the
wanted me to
prosecution
finish the
cheated
song.
by presenting excessive
Let me
evidence of
get
other
back to the
bad
song.
acts that prevented him from getting a fair shake on the charged offenses. And that was the lens through which this jury looked through the
Finish the
evidence in the
lyrics.
Los
A
Angeles
fool
trial.
to learn.
So
Let's
the
see.
presumption of innocence just didn't exist for Harvey Weinstein from the start.
The LA District Attorney has offered the following statement. Although we do not know what arguments the defense will raise on appeal, we're confident that our convictions will withstand appellate scrutiny. Do you think that the appellate courts in California are going to accept your arguments, that you'll actually win this one?
Yes, if fairness prevails, absolutely. And it's not just because this jury came with an assumption that he was a convicted felon, which he is no longer a convicted felon. And it's also because the case was hanging on by a thread from the beginning. What some people don't understand is that Harvey Weinstein's defense in this case was gutted from the start. The trial judge excluded extraordinarily important evidence that related to his defense, namely that the one woman,
There you go,
Jane Doe 1, which was the only count he was convicted of, or the only complainant that he was convicted of, there was evidence excluded that she was with someone else on the evening that she claims that Harvey Weinstein assaulted her. 3 jurors have sworn out affidavits saying that if they had known the evidence that was excluded from them, they would not have voted to convict. Now, this is a case that was closely balanced. He was hung on 2 counts, acquitted on 1, and 1 count stood. And now we have much to unravel as a result of not only this New York case being overturned, but also because there was evidence that was excluded from the jury. So it's not just the New York case on which this appeal hangs, if you will. Not to mention his sentence was premised on a prior conviction. He was sentenced with a conviction. So, even just the mere fact of a sentencing hearing, is another thing that we need to consider.
And I think you actually have some serious legal arguments. We shall see what happens here. What do you say to the many women who say that they've been victimized by Harvey Weinstein? Is that not your purview? The response to that is yours just in the legal arena?
I don't really know that I understand that question. What do I say to them? Why? Because I'm a woman? I don't really understand the question.
No, well, because you're Harvey Weinstein's lawyer.
And my obligation is to my client.
Right.
My obligation, there are plenty of people whose obligations are to the accusers and the victims, and they are doing their jobs. My job is on behalf of my client, who is presumed innocent and who I believe is innocent.
Right.
So that's where my loyalties lie. I don't really believe it's my place to be speaking to the victims in this case, or the alleged victims. That is
Right.
for someone else to do.
So the answer to my question is actually, yes, you don't view it as your purview, which is what I was trying to provide to you, was to say that's not, what you're focused on. That was the purpose of the question. It wasn't that confusing, I don't think. It was pretty straightforward.
Well, I mean, to me, it's an unusual question. I think
Really?
what I would
It's unusual to ask a lawyer for someone, what would you say? Because the victims here weren't just the people who testified in court. There were also a lot of other people.
I don't know why would it be my obligation to
I didn't say obligation. I didn't say anything about an obligation. I just asked you if you had anything to say.
I think there are better questions to ask. I think there are better questions to ask.
I'm sure you do. But I'm not here to ask you just the questions you want to be asked. So.
It's not.
But as I said, I think you make very, I think these are serious legal arguments. I'm taking them very serious. I'm taking everything you're saying very seriously. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.
Okay, hold on. Let's go here. We're here now. Hold on. We're here now. Okay, let's go here.
Dark and insidious world, she had no power to escape until she found sanctuary in Australia. Today, this opulent Manhattan mansion sits empty, abandoned by its owner, the disgraced and now dead Jeffrey Epstein.
It's hard. It's really hard being back here.
But Virginia Roberts Giuffre is determined that Epstein's terrible secrets will not be buried with him.
Being a kid, I didn't even really realize what world I was being brought into.
The world within these walls was inconceivable. A horror house of sexual abuse and international sex trafficking.
I was abused by people that I can't even mention here. There's a lot of scars hidden behind those walls. It should be ripped down. It should be burned to the ground. Some of my worst memories are from this place.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Jeffrey Epstein led a privileged life. His extraordinary wealth on show around the world.
Money, 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 money.
He had his own fleet of planes, a private island, ranches and mansions in New Mexico, New York, and Paris.
Money, 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 money.
But in private, Epstein had a dark and insatiable sexual appetite for young girls. An obsession he shared with like-minded wealthy and powerful
Please hit the like button.
The people that were involved with Jeffrey Epstein included some of the richest and most politically powerful people in the world.
Including a member of the British royal family. Standing accused is the Queen's second son, Prince Andrew. Virginia, who now lives in Australia, says she was trafficked to the Duke of York when she was just 17. Prince Andrew denies any wrongdoing, any knowledge of the Epstein sex ring. But Virginia believes he should be punished. Do you think Prince Andrew should go to jail?
Yes, I think Prince Andrew should go to jail. I mean, is he ever going to? Probably not.
Tonight, inside the Epstein scandal, how the powerful protected Jeffrey Epstein.
They had enough evidence to lock him up for decades, and yet they essentially let him go.
And betrayed our most vulnerable. Do you have any idea of how many victims are out there?
I would say it's in the thousands. I mean, he was literally doing this for over 20 years.
So has Diddy.
As a young child, Virginia's life was all about horses and climbing trees. More a tomboy than a princess. But then at 7, she was repeatedly sexually abused by a family friend. By 13, she had fallen victim to 2 other pedophiles.
My life just changed and it diminished that light that was in me.
At 16, Virginia was emerging from the darkness, landing a job as a locker room attendant at an exclusive resort in Florida. But what Virginia couldn't know was that in 1999, her past would make her perfect prey for Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's partner and procurer of young girls.
She just seemed very nice, and she said, I've got a person that I know who's actually looking for a traveling masseuse. And if you want, I can get you an interview with him. If he likes you, we can get you educated. You'll be a real masseuse. And you'll get to travel and see the world. And you know, like, she made it sound like it was a dream come true. And it wasn't.
Instead, it was a trap. But trustingly, Virginia told the couple of her past abuse. This was as Ghislaine was teaching her how to massage Epstein here at his Palm Beach Island home.
That was for them the key that unlocked the door to knowing how broken I really was.
How quickly did they act on that?
Well, so put it this way, we did the back of him, we did the back of Epstein, and then when he turned over, that's when I was instructed to get undressed and have sex with Jeffrey Epstein while Ghislaine Maxwell was participating as well.
You want to take a moment?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
So you were abused by both of them in your very first encounter?
Yeah, both of them. I was abused by Ghislaine and Epstein.
At 14, I was still in middle school. I was straight A student, never even got a B. I played the first chair trumpet. I was the captain of the cheerleading squad. And then after I met Jeffrey, I just completely quit.
This is where you were living for a while?
Yes, this is where I was living when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
Courtney Wild was just 14 when she met the 48-year-old Epstein in 2001. At the time, she was living in this trailer park, one of West Palm Beach's poorest communities. Do you believe that Jeffrey Epstein targeted areas like this?
Yeah, definitely targeted, children like myself that were vulnerable to him and his money, and we felt like we were being helped and saved by him when ultimately he was just preying on us.
Just 12 kilometres away, another world awaited Courtney, the luxurious Palm Beach Island home of Epstein. She was brought here by another 14-year-old to make much-needed cash. What were you expecting to happen? Why did you think you were coming here?
Well, I knew that I was coming here to give a guy a massage and to make $200. I did know that. It was never told to me that I would be molested by this man or anything like that.
Inside, Courtney very quickly discovered the massage was just a cover for something far more sinister.
We were taken upstairs. It was like a circular stairwell that led to a hallway that led to his bedroom, which the massage table was in his bedroom, bathroom. He asked us to get comfortable, to just, take our clothes off, to be in our bra and panties.
Were you abused during that session?
And so we would massage him for about 30 minutes. And then whenever he was ready, rolled over and asked the person that brought me to go downstairs and wait. And once that happened, then that's when the sexual abuse happened. Yes.
You're 14 and in a completely alien situation, an incomprehensible position. How did you react?
I just remember afterwards how I felt walking down the stairs, and I just felt so dirty and so just like a piece of me had been taken. Dirty. I felt it was like my dirty little secret,
Jeffrey Epstein was the master of manipulation, luring poverty-stricken girls in with cash and feeding their dreams of a better life. By the time the sexual abuse began, many were too invested in his promises to get out. So I have to ask this. Why did you go back?
As an adult, I know it's right to run, but as a kid who had been through what I'd been through in my life already, I guess the last thought that I had was, well, this is what life's about.
This brilliant device keeps your home cool in summer, even during heat waves and power outages. It's smaller than a lunchbox, cools any room within 3 minutes, and uses 98.7% less energy than your AC. It was invented by a former rocket engineer from Houston, and it's now taking the U.S. by storm.
What I'd been through in my life already, I guess the last thought that I had was, well, this is what life's about.
Epstein's desire for sex was insatiable, demanding at least 3 different girls a day to massage him, and in return, be molested. In a perverted pyramid scheme, Epstein would pay extra for his victims to find more girls for him. The younger, the better.
You could tell his addiction wasn't drugs or alcohol. It was definitely young girls. And if I couldn't bring him a girl when he didn't get his obsession, he just would get so mad.
How many girls do you think you brought to Jeffrey Epstein?
I would say at the minimum 50, but anywhere from 50 to 70 girls.
And what were their ages?
Oh, wow. The same ages of me, 14, 15, 16. You know, I just hold a lot of guilt and shame for doing those things. And just to know that I had any influence on that happening to somebody else, just, you know, it really is just devastating and breaks my heart.
Did Jeff know anybody's real true age, or he didn't care?
They are victims.
I don't think he cared. He told me the younger the better.
These are just some of the girls from Palm Beach who were lured into Epstein's evil web.
He asked me to take my shirt off, so I took my shirt off.
Their young voices retelling a police officer of chillingly similar encounters with the businessman.
You just start getting a little excited a lot, and you start touching yourself.
Despite these girls' testimony in 2005, Jeffrey Epstein would go on to abuse and scar countless more young girls. That he got away with it is a disgrace. How he did so is even worse.
Why did this man get to continue to roam the streets freely and sexually abuse other young girls when you knew what he was doing? This was no secret.
Coming up,
There are girls as young as 12.
more depravity.
Every place that he goes to, he's already got people lined up and makers making that happen.
Epstein's international sex trafficking ring.
This is a real photo.
And how a British prince, how many times were you trafficked to him?
3 times.
Is implicated in a shameful scandal.
At a minimum, he's a witness. At some point, he's going to have to face the music.
That's next on 60 Minutes. Jeffrey Epstein was a man made of money, worth nearly $1 billion. Look up to the sky, boy. But with friends in high places, he was not only wealthy, but extraordinarily influential. He was a sex trafficker, a sex abuser, and he was virtually untouchable.
The white Diddy.
One of his young victims, Virginia Roberts Giuffre, experienced and witnessed the depravity too many times.
This is New York, this is Palm Beach, this is California, this is Paris, this is London. This is wherever Epstein was touching down. He needed to have girls on constant call. In every single state or every place that he goes to, he's already got people lined up and makers making that happen.
Allegedly, part of the sick Epstein machine was Jean-Luc Brunel, a model agent based in Paris with access to beautiful young girls. Girls he was happy to deliver to Epstein.
Girls ranged in all different ages. I mean, there were girls as young as 12.
You have no doubt he was having sex with a 12-year-old.
I was told by him that he was having sex with 3 12-year-olds sent by Jean-Luc Brunel. And Jeffrey laughed about it. He laughed. He thought it was funny.
This is not just a story of terrible sexual abuse, but also an extraordinary abuse of power, where the enormous wealth and influence of Jeffrey Epstein would prove to have the ultimate say, where justice was not just ignored, but deliberately denied by the very people who were meant to stop him.
Every single institution in our society that is supposed to protect the vulnerable failed these survivors.
David Boies is one of America's most prominent New York lawyers. He's representing 9 Epstein victims, including Virginia, in their fight to hunt down those who were a part of Epstein's sex trafficking ring, the scope and scale of which is mind-boggling. For all the wealth and the glamour and the beautiful mansion and the gorgeous island, I mean, this was tawdry, this was dark, this was very ugly.
It's a dark, ugly situation. Behind the facade of charm and sophistication. It's like turning over a rock and you just see the things crawling. It was bad.
Within 9 months of meeting Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, Virginia was being flown halfway around the world to have sex with Epstein's wealthy associates. A little girl amongst a sea of men.
I was a baby stuck in a world where grown-ups were allowed to do whatever they wanted, and I was lost.
And were you trafficked that night?
Yeah, I was trafficked that night.
And so began Virginia's new life, still on call for Epstein, but also for any friend he chose.
I was trafficked to other billionaires. I was trafficked to politicians, professors, even royalty. It was the elite of the world. It was the people who run the world. It was the most powerful people in the world.
Why do you think Epstein did that to you?
He used me as a form of blackmail. So, these people would owe him favors. So he wanted to always have something on someone just in case he needed it.
Virginia has named the men she was trafficked to in documents lodged with the courts. The name that has caused the greatest splash is Prince Andrew. The pair captured in this now infamous photograph taken in 2001. So as you know, Prince Andrew denies the allegations against him, and he says that this photo is a fake, that he was never there, and that he's not his arm, and they're not his fingers.
Those are his fingers. That is Andrew. This photo has been verified as an original, and it's been since given to the FBI, and they've never contested that it's a fake. And I know it's real. And he needs to stop with all of these lame excuses. We're sick of hearing it. This is a real photo.
And that was the first time you met him?
And that's the very first time I met him. And that's right before I was abused by him.
Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell took the 17-year-old Virginia to London to party with Prince Andrew.
Then we went to Club Tramp, and he danced with me, and he sweats a lot, and he smells funny. And then we get in the car, and Ghislaine tells me in the car that I have to do what I do for Jeffrey for Prince Andrew. And that's when I learned what was going to happen.
How many times were you trafficked to him?
3 times.
While Prince Andrew denies the allegations, Virginia maintains she's telling the truth. After the encounter in London, she says she had sex with him again at Epstein's New York mansion, where she was seen in his company by this witness, Joanna Sjoberg, another victim. Sjoberg claims Prince Andrew groped her breasts that night. The final time Virginia was trafficked to Prince Andrew was here on Epstein's private island in the Caribbean. Was it just you and him at that time?
No, there were a lot of younger girls with us.
How many young women with you that day or night?
I believe there were 8.
Did you have any conversations with Prince Andrew during those encounters?
Not really. You're not even acknowledged as being alive or there or important or cared for or worried about in any way. None of those human emotions were attached to me when I was trafficked to Prince Andrew.
What about your emotions when you learned, after the first time that it was to happen a second time and then it was to happen a third time? What was your reaction to that?
Disgusted every time. Just absolutely disgusted. There wasn't one time that I was trafficked to any individual that I thought, oh, he's an okay guy. No, I was always disgusted that there are so many people involved in this highly organized sex trafficking operation.
Prince Andrew
Yes.
denies Virginia's allegations.
Prince Andrew says he was unaware of the sex trafficking, but he spent days in Epstein's New York mansion where the sex trafficking was rampant. You could not spend time there and not know what was going on.
Lawyer David Boys has written to Prince Andrew asking for his side of the story, with no response. But whether it's voluntary or forced, David Boys is certain Prince Andrew will have to answer for his friendship with Epstein.
At some point, he's going to have to face the music. At some point, he's going to have to testify. He can't hide forever.
Are you sure about that? He's a very powerful man from a very powerful family, and it doesn't seem like the UK authorities are at all interested in pursuing him.
No, and if he wants to stay, locked up, in a palace, and not travel outside the UK, maybe he can escape a reckoning. I mean, he can't travel to the United States without being prepared to testify.
Is that the case right now, that he can't come to the United States?
Well, he can come to the United States, but if he comes to the United States, he could be served with a subpoena.
He could be, but
yes.
Would he be?
I think that's quite likely. I mean, at a minimum, he's a witness. Even if people were not suing him directly, at a minimum, he's an important witness. So I think if he came to the United States now, it is quite likely that he would be served with process.
Coming up,
We were able to amass a whole wealth of evidence. We knew it all.
Jeffrey Epstein exposed.
Is it true, sir, that you have what's been described as an egg-shaped penis?
But power and influence
It
means
started with the secret plea deal that Jeffrey was offered.
there's no stopping
The directive to shut it down came from the highest levels from DC.
this moneybags monster.
People need to be held accountable. It's not okay to sexually abuse anybody.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
Why did you keep going back if you didn't want to live out?
Jeffrey Epstein could have been stopped a decade and a half ago.
I was afraid that he was going to harm my family.
His murky massage ruse, enabled by inducement and intimidation, was uncovered when a 14-year-old victim finally told her parents about the abuse.
No threat, bad things would happen if I told him.
For this alone, he could and should have been sent to jail for life. But no one counted on the reach of Epstein's influence.
We had no idea who this person was at the time, anything about him. We advised her that she needed to go to police and to tell her story to police.
Palm Beach lawyer Spencer Cooven was shocked by what police uncovered back in 2005 after raiding Epstein's home. It wasn't just one girl. In the end, they had testimony from 40 victims whose average age ranged from 13 to 16.
We were able to amass a whole wealth of evidence. We knew it all.
Amongst them were damning message pads, clearly showing a trade in young girls, scheduling them for massage appointments.
He has a teacher for you, to teach you how to speak Russian. She is 2 times 8 years old, not blonde. Lessons are free, and you can have your first today if you call.
As well, flight logs showing girls being transported aboard Jeffrey's private plane, dubbed the Lolita Express. As compelling as the case was, Epstein fought back, using intimidation as his main weapon.
You had multiple people that were out there really digging up dirt on not only the victims, but also the lawyers, the police, everyone involved.
Have you ever come across something like that before?
Never.
Getting investigators to investigate the investigators?
Everybody, yep.
Did it work? Did he scare people away?
Yeah, it definitely worked. Sadly. This is a man that's now dead, and they're still afraid to come forward.
But ultimately, there was too much evidence for authorities to ignore. They had to act. But Epstein, with an army of lawyers, negotiated a slap on the wrist and a slap in the face for victims. Instead of admitting to child sex abuse, Epstein agreed to plead guilty to a lesser charge of soliciting a minor for prostitution. and in 2008 was sentenced to a mere 18 months in a Florida jail.
They basically turned victims into prostitutes. These were girls with absolutely no history and no
prostitutes.
past. To brand them that.
That's all I've been saying, even about the Diddy, right there.
Disgusting.
He was a pedophile,
A
accusing his
porn
victims
star.
of being prostitutes. He turned the tables completely.
Absolutely.
This is where Jeffrey Epstein served his sentence, but really, he only slept here. If Epstein had been your average sex offender, he would have automatically been denied work release. But instead, being Epstein, he was allowed out 6 and then 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. Driven by chauffeur to his downtown office, where it said he was attended to by 2 young victims he flew in from New York. Back here at the jail, the special treatment extended to being housed in his own private wing, protected by his own private bodyguards. So for Jeffrey Epstein, this prison sentence was pretty much business as usual.
Throughout this whole case, there's never been justice, and it started back in 2008 with the secret plea deal that Jeffrey was offered by the state of Florida.
Apart from his light prison sentence, no one knew what else Epstein had negotiated in his secret Florida deal. It turned out he'd wrangled full immunity against any other charges for himself and his co-conspirators. The final outrage, victims like Courtney Wild were never to be told of the deal. How do you feel about that?
To be sexually abused by a man and have the government know, and then actually, co-conspire with the perpetrator to make sure nothing happens to him, it's just so, it just sounds unreal.
It does, except it is real.
Mm-hmm, except it is real.
And it happened to you plus a whole heap of other women.
Right.
Why do you think the government did that?
Money, power, and I think that there was a lot of people involved in this underage minor sex ring that they were running, and I think everybody wanted it to go away.
So you believe that there was a conspiracy at play here?
Oh, absolutely.
What is your view of authorities signing up to that? That they're happy to protect a perpetrator at the cost of the victims. They won't even tell the victims what's going on.
It was astonishing at the time, but I know for a fact that the directive to shut it down came from the highest levels from DC.
With Epstein out of jail and with no criminal avenue left to them, victims could only sue for damages.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth?
In pursuing Epstein, attorney Spencer Cooven was intent on rattling the businessman.
Could you please give us your name? Jeffrey Epstein.
Who, until now, had been largely untouchable.
Is it true, sir, that you have what's been described as an egg-shaped penis?
Form, vague, indefinite, and I'm going to give you the first one of Mr. Cooven.
It's a killer first question. What was your second question going to be?
Well, my strategy at the time was that I wanted him to know that as a lawyer on behalf of the victims, I didn't care who he was. I didn't care how rich he was. I didn't care who he knew or how powerful he was.
Was that question based on evidence?
It was. My position was always, how would a 14-year-old girl know what his private parts look like? There is no valid explanation for something like that.
At the time of this humiliation for Epstein, Courtney Wild was demanding some answers too, which led to her uncovering the secret deal between prosecutors and Epstein. Ever since, she's been fighting to have the deal overturned.
Basically, it took 11 years litigating back and forth with the government for them to, finally declare that, yes, my rights were violated and the government was wrong.
Earlier this year, Courtney won her case. Keeping the plea deal from the victims was declared illegal. But the rest of it, where Epstein's co-conspirators are protected in Florida by immunity, stands. something Courtney is now appealing.
Justice needs to be served. People need to be held accountable. It's not okay to sexually abuse anybody. And so for the past 11 years, I've just been fighting to get that message across, that it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you have money or not. You don't deserve to be treated that way.
Do you feel like you're being heard?
Yeah.
So why are you crying?
I know. I do finally feel like I'm being heard, and it's a good cry, you know? And I take pride in that, because it's intimidating to go against somebody of such power and wealth. But yeah, I do feel like my voice is being heard.
Coming up,
People who should have known better, just let them continue.
freed from prison.
Like, there was no way he was just going to stop. He wasn't just going to go home and not do that.
And reunited with friends in high places.
They both think that they can get away with everything.
But the women who suffered
I expected it from a man, but I didn't expect it from a woman.
refused to surrender.
We need to find Ghislaine. She has no shame. She has no heart.
She can't hide out forever.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
Wow.
By 2009, Jeffrey Epstein had served his sentence in Florida, an extraordinarily lax and lenient 13 months, when he could have faced 45 years for his crimes. With his luxury properties and private planes, he travelled when and where he wanted. And old friend Prince Andrew reconnected with him, despite his sex offender status. What do you think when you see that photo?
I mean, they're just two of a like mind, you know? They both love having sex with young women. They both think that they can get away with everything, that they're above society. And, you know, for a long time, Jeffrey was. He proved it, didn't he?
Virginia Roberts Giuffre says she was a victim of both men. Her lawyer, David Boys, says she was also a victim of a system prepared to let Epstein get away with it. The secret sweetheart deal in Florida, proof that these young women counted for nothing.
And that's one of the most disturbing and really shameful things. That people who should have known better, didn't know better, turned a blind eye and just let him continue.
But Epstein didn't count on the anger of his victims. When they found out about the secret deal, they took further legal action, which in turn led to the federal authorities reopening the case. What Florida didn't have the stomach to do, New York certainly did. And so on July 6th of this year, Jeffrey Epstein was again arrested and charged. But this time he faced the prospect of life behind bars.
I never thought it was going to happen. I honestly thought he was just going to continue to get away with it over and over and over again, just like he proved so many times. So yeah, it was like Christmas in July. Big time.
66-year-old billionaire financier Jeffrey Epstein was in court today for allegedly
I like
engaging
that.
in
If
sex
you want to know the
trafficking.
tea, you got
How
to pay
serious are these charges against Epstein,
AunTeaFee.
David?
Armed with fresh allegations from new victims, authorities charged Epstein with child sex trafficking and conspiracy to engage in sex trafficking. Raids on his homes in New York and his Caribbean island uncovered hundreds of sexually explicit CDs and photographs, many of underage girls. It looked like the game was up. But Epstein pleaded not guilty and applied for bail, which was denied after the court heard from two victims, including Courtney Wild.
The fact that I had an influence on him remaining behind bars was just like so powerful for me, because if anybody knows that man the way I do, there was no way he was just going to stop. He wasn't just going to go home and not do that.
He lived the high life but died in disgrace.
Just a month later, for the final time, Epstein proved he would not be held accountable for his terrible crimes, found dead by suicide in his jail cell. But how he managed that in such a place is a mystery. His shocked death raising suspicions he was a man who knew too much.
It's incomprehensible to me how the American prison system could, with probably its highest profile prisoner, take him off suicide watch, remove his cellmate, not have the guards look in on him. Somehow the cameras are turned off. That's just incomprehensible. On the other hand, it's inconceivable to me that somebody could have penetrated the prison and actually killed him.
Do you believe that if he had lived, that the justice system would have been able to hold him?
Yes. No, absolutely. And the reason I think that suicide is plausible is that I think he knew that the jig was up. He was going to jail, and he was going to jail for a very long time.
Did you know there's a way to activate Himalayan salt that can make it melt all the fat stuck to your skin? But be careful.
Going to jail for a very long time.
Today is a day of power and strength.
Epstein's death did not silence his victims, who were invited to share their pain in open court, even though with his death, the criminal case against him had to be dropped.
I won't stop fighting. I will never be silenced until these people are brought to justice.
Their focus now is on prosecuting Epstein's alleged co-conspirators. Ghislaine Maxwell, considered the most prominent and cruel.
The KK
I don't
in
mean
the
to
Diddy
sound
trial.
sexist in any way, shape, or form, but I expected it from a man, but I didn't expect it from a woman. And yeah, I think that's what hurts the most.
Ghislaine Maxwell was a London socialite and daughter of disgraced media baron Robert Maxwell. On her father's death, she moved to Manhattan to join her boyfriend, Jeffrey Epstein, and according to lawyer Sigrid McCauley, soon became his full partner in the sex trafficking ring.
Certainly, I would like to see her being held criminally accountable for what she did. She was an adult. She was an active participant. She facilitated it for years and years. She took money from it.
If she is held accountable, what is she facing?
She would be facing something that would not release her from jail, in my view.
So is it a matter right now that no one knows where Ms. Maxwell is, or is she hiding out somewhere? Or?
Well, she's clearly hiding out. We don't know where she is. Maybe the prosecutors know where she is. But she can't hide out forever.
The other person who has gone to ground is Jean-Luc Brunel, the French model agent who is also accused of sexual abuse and supplying Epstein with underage models who were conveniently housed in and trafficked from this New York apartment block, not far from the mansion. This apartment block, he just had women on tap. He had girls on tap.
He had girls on tap. Jeffrey told me that he has slept with over 1,000 of Jean-Luc Brunel's models / victims.
And you believe that?
I do. We need to find these people, and we need to hold them accountable. We need to find Ghislaine. You know, the world should be looking out for her. She has no shame. She has no heart. She has no conscience. There is no stopping them.
Coming up.
It wasn't until they told me, I want you to have a baby.
Virginia's dramatic escape.
You cannot say no to these people.
To Australia.
I implore the community to please stand next to me to start holding these monsters accountable.
And why death is not the final chapter.
If I were one of those people, I wouldn't sleep well because it's going to all come out.
In the Epstein saga.
There will be lawsuits against his estate, lawsuits against the enablers, and hopefully criminal prosecutions.
That's next on 60 Minutes.
I promised you carrots. They don't ask questions and they don't judge you. They just want to be loved back.
Virginia Robert Giuffre has found freedom and shelter in Australia. She lives in far north Queensland, a world away from Jeffrey Epstein and his sex trafficking ring.
I get the way of life, and I prefer it here. I feel safer here. It's been the place that taught me how to live again.
From 16 to 19, Virginia was at the mercy of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, entrapped by psychological chains she could not break until they made this outrageous proposal.
So I spent years with them being manipulated and abused and used, and it wasn't until they told me, I want you to have a baby and we're going to give you an allowance, but we also need you to sign a piece of paper that says this child does not belong to you. And, you know, I wasn't a maternal person back then, but I was like, my womb is not for sale. But you cannot say no to these people. So I said, okay, guys, no problem. But I need to finish off my education like you guys originally promised.
Remarkably, Epstein agreed, paying for Virginia to study massage in Thailand. But, as always, there was a catch.
They sent me to a Thai massage school, but not only that, I had to be in Thailand to pick up another victim. I was supposed to bring another victim home.
Oh, wow.
Killer dog.
Instead, Virginia met this man, Robbie.
Looked over my shoulder. Butterflies, and she's it. That's the one. Straight off the bat, I just knew. And then I had to work my magic.
His magic worked. After 3 days, he proposed. After 10, they were married. How could you both be so certain of each other after such a short amount of time?
Yeah, that's the magical question. You just know.
Personally, I knew he was the one when he told me, the people that are abusing you, it's not right. And you don't have to live like that. And he was the first person to tell me that. That's when I knew. I knew I'd be with this man forever.
Robbie brought Virginia to Australia, where they're now raising their 3 young children. Their love story stronger than ever, 17 years on.
I just wanted to start my own life off. So I was grateful.
Just to get out.
Just to get out alive and have a happy life.
To get out alive?
Mm-hmm.
What made you fear for your life? What was happening?
Just the abuse alone. It was physical. It was very physical.
She took the lead. She's the one I learned how to trust again. So she's my little warrior.
Oh, I don't know.
But how would you describe this young woman?
You talking about the
Brave,
victim?
Powerful.
Patricia?
A survivor.
Do we yet know how many young women are the survivors of Epstein?
We don't really know. We don't know how many actually survive, dying of drug overdoses and all the other things that happen to vulnerable children who suffer that kind of abuse. It's tragic for the survivors, but it is even more tragic for those who don't survive.
Virginia's lawyer, David Boys, says amongst the well-heeled and well-connected here in New York, nerves should be running high.
If I were one of those people, I wouldn't sleep well because it's going to all come out. And you don't know when. And you don't know how. But you've got to worry that somebody's going to talk.
And certainly there is more legal action to come.
There will be lawsuits against his estate. There will be lawsuits against the enablers. And hopefully there will be criminal prosecutions that will help vindicate them. So I think all of those avenues remain. And
wow,
and
that's
we are
sad.
pursuing those literally as we speak.
Jeffrey Epstein's death is not the end of the story. There are so many others who still need to be held to account. And so many other victims suffering in silence. Virginia has set up a foundation to reach those wounded women and children and to ultimately stop sex trafficking. What is it that drives you today, Virginia? Is it the sadness? Is it the anger?
It's a responsibility in my eyes. I mean, of course, there is sadness, there is anger, there's scars that will never heal, ever. But to me, more than anything, it's a responsibility that I have. And I implore the community to please stand next to me and help me bring down all these bad people. And if you've got somebody in your life that's doing this to you too, speak out, stand up. The times are changing as they should be. And it's a good time to start holding these monsters accountable.
Hello, I'm Tara Brown. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia,
Hold on.
make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also...
Let's get to this one before I go, Virginia.
You've probably heard about Boxable's flagship product, the Casita.
When Ghislaine Maxwell, the one-time madam of billionaire pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, was last year convicted of sex crimes against underage girls, her victims hoped a jail cell would silence her. Turns out they were wrong. As well as appealing her 20-year sentence, Maxwell has now begun a concerted campaign to rewrite history. And in an audacious and
April the
strangely compelling
25th.
interview from prison, she's making some extraordinary claims. Not
April
only is
25th.
the disgraced Prince Andrew the victim of a malicious hoax, she says anyone who thinks she's cruel, horrible and guilty misunderstands her completely. It's behind the high walls and the barbed wire of Florida's Tallahassee Federal Correctional Institution, where sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell will spend the next 20 years. Famous for her high society connections, her toxic devotion to pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, and for going on the run for a year. 61-year-old Maxwell now wears a new mantle. Inmate 02879-509.
Good morning.
Hold on, y'all.
So, what is that behind you?
It is a painting.
Let me come back to that. Hold on. Hold on.
Your own impression in Virginia's last few months?
It was my impression. It has been also my own experience. And I think there's an opportunity here after her death, and perhaps even because of her death, for us to get a greater understanding of the trajectory of recovery from abuses of this type, and to learn a little bit more about how non-linear that recovery is, and how triggers come, recovery ebbs and flows. And
Just
of course,
sit back,
Virginia
Elizabeth, and enjoy the
being bullied
show.
online,
You will get it.
and
I'm
she
playing it
was,
right now.
In the midst of trying
look
to
at the
navigate
title
through recovering
and do your own little research.
continuing to be attacked.
We're not going to stop.
Bullied by who? And people saying what?
Send a cash app. Support the platform. And then I will explain.
Hundreds,
but if not, sit back and get caught up.
People saying
Hi,
that
Conrad.
she was not telling the truth, that they were glad that she had passed.
Oh,
and what do you think
And
of those people?
Pretty tragic. Well, with the work that I do, having worked in mental health, recovery from trauma, and substance use disorder for 15 years, I have compassion for people who are coming from a place of ignorance, coming from a place where they just don't understand. That being said, there are consequences to people behaving in such a way. And one of the consequences is certainly that this contributed to the pressure that was put on somebody, and also the fact that it stops people coming forward. It stops victims and survivors coming forward, because what is the incentive to come forward if this is the way that we handle things and this is the response?
You testified yourself in court in 2019 against Jeffrey Epstein, and you were one of more than 20 women to speak out. and accuse Epstein of sexually abusing you. Obviously, he was dead by then. He'd taken his own life. On the day of the hearing, though, you said these words: "I am every girl he did this to, and they are all me. And today we stand together, those that are present and those that are not." How important was that day to you?
You know, I didn't know how important that day would be to me until that day came. And not only on a personal level, but on a collective level. And on the level where this was a legally unprecedented moment in American legal history, where Judge Berman gave alleged victims the opportunity to come and stand together and speak in front of Epstein's attorneys, in front of the press, in front of his court, and share their experience and share their feelings if they'd like to do so. So I stood shoulder to shoulder with about 23 of the alleged victims. And it was an incredibly powerful moment. It was also an incredibly difficult moment, and we all took turns holding each other up and also breaking down.
You have described Epstein as both captivating and frightening. With the passage of time, how do you describe him now? I think since his death, I've done a lot of work in recovering and still on the road to recovery. It's an ongoing path. And so I still remember him that way, and I remember him and how I felt at the time, during, and for many years after. And I remembered him as captivating, terrifying. I also just see the tragedy that so many people fell victim to this so unnecessarily. And so many people asked for help, went to the police, went to the FBI, and were turned away. And there is a failing on the side of the system that's in place, the systems that are meant to be in place to protect children and victims of this type of abuse. When Epstein was alive, you said that you felt in danger. I wonder...
That's right.
Do you still feel that now or not?
So I think there's a difference between being in danger and feeling in danger, but the experience is not different to the person.
Okay, so y'all not hitting the like button. I'm gonna go ahead and end.
I think
I'm not going over 2 hours and y'all don't hit the like button.
There was a real and present threat.
Hit the like button. I need everybody in here to hit the like button. Lord. I don't need hearts. I need the like button. I need the like button hit. On Cash App, Super Chat, Super Sticker. I need to feel like I'm not wasting my time. If not, I'll be back later with the Diddy update. If you
You know,
want
you
to
kind of
hear it,
think
hit
that
the
you
like
can handle
button.
Who is the real G? Who's the real Ghislaine?
I feel completely divorced from the person that people reference and talk about.
The KK in the Diddy trial.
Survivors like her, there is no disputing the facts. As the court found, Ghislaine Maxwell procured underage girls for Jeffrey Epstein. She groomed them, sexually abused and trafficked them.
She was saying Ghislaine was worse than
What do
Epstein.
you make of Ghislaine
Wow.
Maxwell's decision to speak from jail like
And tell me what happened.
For years now, she's been treating women who, as girls, were abused by Epstein and Maxwell. Is she a monster?
I think in many ways she is. What Ghislaine did, she hunted, she preyed on these girls and procured them for sexual exploitation and sex trafficking. That's a monster.
know what my friends will do or won't do. I mean, my focus won't be on that. I will always turn to
such an honor to be here.
Attaching herself to causes is not new for Ghislaine Maxwell.
I'm here representing civil society.
It was not that long ago, in an attempt to distance herself from Epstein, her great passion was to save the planet's oceans.
The deep sea and the wild animals that live there.
Now it's other inmates and, of course, herself, with yet another spin on her relationship with former boyfriend Epstein.
When you look back and what you think your biggest mistake was?
I honestly wish I'd never met her. Because I didn't know that he was so awful. I mean, obviously now, looking back with hindsight, of course.
Do you consider yourself a victim of Jeffrey?
Well, I don't love the use of the word victim. But clearly, the fact that I worked for him and that I spent time with him and knew him has devastated my life and hurt many people that I love and hold dear that are around me.
Do you believe that?
I don't. I believe that Jeffrey Epstein was an opportunity to her, and I believe that she was an opportunity to Jeffrey Epstein. Without Jeffrey, I don't believe that Ghislaine could have maintained the lifestyle that her father gave her for most of her life.
Well, he paid her $30 million.
That's exactly right. And he got plenty in return.
He fleeced hundreds of millions of dollars from his employees' pension funds before his body was found floating in the Atlantic Ocean, having apparently fallen overboard from his yacht, the Lady Ghislaine.
Sure of exactly what took place. The only thing I'm sure of is that he did not commit suicide.
I feel that Robert and Jeffrey have very similar qualities. And I feel that Ghislaine spent most of her life trying to please her father. And her father groomed her to be this socialite, to learn how to read people and manipulate and exploit people.
People who spent time with Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein when they were together say that Ghislaine was deeply in love with Jeffrey Epstein, that she would do anything for him. Can what happened to those girls be categorized as an act of love? That she was acting out of love for Jeffrey, and that's why she did these despicable things?
I don't know that Ghislaine is capable of love. And the love that she has for Jeffrey, I think it was the idea of who Jeffrey was and what Jeffrey had to offer. I think that's where her love was.
From behind prison walls, Ghislaine is not only determined to correct the world's view of her, but she is doing her best to resurrect her close friend, the cancelled and shameful Prince Andrew. This photo changed the course of history, but Ghislaine claims to know it's a hoax.
I have information that would indicate that it is a fraud and a fake.
Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell lived a glamorous life of travel and exclusive getaways with homes in Paris, New York, New Mexico, the Virgin Islands, and Palm Beach, Florida. But beyond the glitz, it was dark.
I go to red room, red
with much of
room,
the
red
sexual
room.
abuse of underage girls happening behind